Namaste. Welcome to a special edition of Finish First, the Cycle Breaker program, coming to you from the Yoga Lab. I was recently asked a question about healing, and someone asked me to give my expertise, or at least my experience on healing. And I looked at all the comments that were on this post, and I said, what can I add to the topic of healing? Because it's so important to us. And this may be a very short message, but hopefully it's one that will give you information that can just help take your life to the next level. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, most of us walk around with trauma in our lives. And the trauma that we experience gets trapped inside our bodies. And it shows itself when things don't go the way we want them to go. So if there's a person who cuts you off in line, or you have to wait a little extra long at McDonald's or something like that, all of a sudden, emotions come out. And many times, it's not based on the situation itself, because we can all acknowledge some of these things that we go off about are pretty minor. But what it's based on is the trauma that we're carrying around inside of us. The trauma from relationships that were broken. Trauma from relationships that were lost to death and other things. Maybe there's trauma because life has changed. Our health and our wellness is now at stake. Our immune systems are sometimes compromised, and every day we're not really sure if we're going to make it through healthy or not. So many things are going on. And add on top of that the unemployment rate and our financial situation, up one day, down the next day. So inside of us, there's a lot of trauma that we just absorb, and we continue to push through life as if nothing is wrong. So today I want to talk to you about one element of healing that you can use when the trauma gets too full on the inside. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that while you're going through the healing process, things that are very important to do. One, acknowledge the trauma that exists in your life. If your trauma is based on a breakup, acknowledge that you're hurt over that breakup. If your trauma is based on the fact that something in your life is not right medically, acknowledge that your trauma is there. So acknowledging the trauma is so important, because we can't ignore all these things that are piling up. Instead, we have to face them. And the first step is to acknowledge it. So maybe you're going to write it down on a piece of paper, start a little list, and we'll do something else with that list later on. We'll maybe destroy it, but at least acknowledge the things that are in your life that are not the way you want them to be. Most importantly, the things that have caused you despair and trauma. Acknowledge the trauma. After you've acknowledged the trauma, now you have to figure out what are the ways, what are the tools, what are the resources that you need to get past the trauma. See, when we know that there's difficulties in our lives, now we have to figure out, do we need help getting past it? And I'll submit to you that we do. Many times, therapy and things like that is really like a bad word in our community, but the truth of the matter is that therapy helps us get through the trauma that's deep down inside. Because oftentimes you need someone who's going to not only listen to you, but then hear the cues of the things that you are saying that can lead to your recovery. We can't do it by ourselves often. And we can't rely on our best friend or the person that you normally talk to, because they're so concerned with your emotional well-being that they may ignore the areas that you need to heal in. So when we talk about getting tools and resources so that we can get past the trauma, therapy is important. Find someone that you can talk to on a professional level. It may cost, hopefully it's covered, but it is important. The other thing you can do is surround yourself with love and positivity. See, one of the things about getting out of trauma is to get away from the environment that is causing the trauma. Are you in an environment or a relationship that continues to beat you down? And here's the key. Maybe you can't leave today. Maybe today marks the point where you will plan your exit. But the bottom line is that when we're dealing with trauma and we're talking about healing, we have to get away from the environment that's causing the pain and move to an environment that will bring you joy and happiness. And joy and happiness doesn't last always, right? You go ups and downs just like with anything, but generally speaking, you want to be in an environment that's healthy for you. That means healthy relationships, healthy friends, and people who are giving you good, sound advice. And then the third thing that I want to leave you with in regard to healing, and there are many more, is that you will experience times where you don't feel healed anymore. There will be times when thoughts come to your mind that are negative, that are sad, that take you all the way back into a pit of depression. But that's normal. Don't think that there's anything wrong with you because that happens. And don't think that you're not on the road to recovery, because you are. But just generally speaking, as human beings with all these thoughts that go through our brain and our head during the day, millions of thoughts, of course there are going to be some negative ones. And of course you may get sad. And of course you may think about that situation that you thought you were over. It will come back to you. But here's the key. Acknowledge the thought and let it pass on by. You see? Acknowledge that the thought is there. Yes, I'm thinking about that addiction again. Maybe I'm thinking about how much fun I had when I was drinking alcohol or using drugs. But let the thought move past you. It's almost like a river. You know, the river is there, and you cannot ignore the things that are floating down the river. You're sitting on the bank of a river. You're sitting there trying to be calm, trying to heal, trying to improve your life, and suddenly that piece of garbage comes floating by. Don't ignore the garbage and act like it's not there. Instead, acknowledge it. You can look at it, you can watch it, but as soon as it goes by, bring your focus back to where you want to be. That's what you do with the negative feelings that'll come to your head. Don't ignore them, and don't feel discouraged. Healing is a lifelong process. You will go back. You will relive that negativity, but you can overcome it if you allow the thoughts to exist and to just float by. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stress to you enough how important sitting in silence and meditation is to your overall health. Find a place where you can just sit alone and deal with those emotions. It will be hard because no one wants to think about the things that hurt us. No one wants to think about the things or the areas in which we failed, but it's important to acknowledge them just like the garbage floating down the river so that we can plan to move to the next level and plan to surround ourselves with safety, with love, positivity, and joy. So today with this message, I just wanted to speak to all the healers out there and all those who are ready to heal. It is a process. You will get tired. You will get discouraged. But don't lose faith because you can make it through. Just acknowledge what's happened and what has you down. Write it down, ball it up, throw it in that river. Why? Because remember, when the negativity arises, the negative thoughts, the sad feelings, the depression, let it float by in the river, the same river that you threw that anxiety into. Let it float on by. So don't ignore the feelings. Don't feel bad about reliving it. Don't feel bad when you backslide. That happens. That's life. We're not perfect. But you can continue to heal. And remember this, as I said before, healing is a lifelong process. You never perfect it. You just continue to work on it and help others get to where they need to be. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is my moment with you. It's Judge Dawson. These are my Cycle Breaker sessions. I'm coming to you from the Yoga Lab, where you can come and you can heal. We can meditate, we can move and do all those things that are great for your body and your mind. But until I see you again, namaste.